Welcome to Balance and Flow. This is our 10th episode, which I'm really super excited about. My name is Jenny DuFresne, and I'm the founder of Balance and Flow. I decided to create a show that really helps us thrive in times of uncertainty. The time that we're in now globally is so much uncertainty, so much lack of clarity about how to go forward, what to do. And so I wanted to be able to start conversations with amazing people or people who have great insight into ways that we can really thrive in times of tremendous uncertainty. And so normally I have guests, but over the last week, I've had some tremendous, my family has actually had some tremendous experiences that I really felt would be beneficial to the listeners of Balance and Flow. Again, I'm excited to be here. My name is Jenny DuFresne. I run a training and leadership development company during my day job, if you will, and have found that lessons for leaders and their teams are something that can help us navigate and improve the way that we lead, improve the way that we work with our teams. So, this 10th episode of Balance and Flow, I'm going to talk about how to take the lessons of your life to not just work to get ready, but to always stay ready. So I'm excited about this particular topic. If you think that this is a topic, learning about how to continue forward momentum when the stakes seem to be really against you, how to create a plan that helps you thrive, if you think someone might be interested in that, please right now go down below and share it with a friend, share it with your networks, and most importantly, just subscribe. So as we go along, as we have more of these shows, Balance and Flow shows, you'll be able to be right at the front of the line when those shows are ready to air. So thank you for that. So today's show is all about don't get ready, stay ready. Back March of this year, 2020, right around the latter part of March, our 21-year-old son, who was out at a national service program, he was sent back home. And so that meant that we had to make room in our house for our 21-year-old coming back home, our young adult coming back home, as well as homeschooling our 10-year-old. And of course, you can imagine that was a big change, a big shift in our household. Our young son had to get accustomed to not being the center of attention anymore, and our young adult son had to be now kind of return to the rules and the guidance of his parents. And so clearly that was a challenge. And so you can imagine that we're not only managing and running businesses, my wife and I are running multiple businesses, but we're having to make all these adjustments, just like so many other parents and business owners have had to do in this time of COVID. We had to change direction. We had to stop the practices and things that we were doing and create time and space for bringing on our adult child son. And very quickly, we realized that it was not clear when he would be able to return to the work that he was already doing. And so for maybe a few days, we kind of were like, okay, what's going to happen? Like, again, most of us in the country, we had no idea really the impacts of this incredible pandemic that has changed the way we do business, that has impacted families, that has impacted leaders, leadership. We had really no idea early on what was going to happen. But what we quickly realized is that if our son couldn't work because no one was going out of the house, people weren't, businesses were shut down. If he couldn't work, we had to do something. And a dream that he had had for a while was to go into the service. I'm a former United States Marine. My wife is a retired Army officer. And so that had been something that he had talked about several years before, but he really wasn't in the space to tackle that, to take that on. So here he is, back home. The way forward is really unclear. And the thing that we realized is that, you got to have in any time of uncertainty. And I think leader after leader, when I've read stories about leaders all over the world, both historical figures and contemporary current day figures, one of the most important ways to stay ready for whatever the next opportunity is you have to plan. And so the first thing I'd like to share that we did is that we discovered and created a plan, a way forward. So how is our son going to prepare himself to enter and succeed in the military? It turns out that he decided that he wanted to earn the title United States Marine, which made me kind of happy. But I also know that the Marine Corps is very, very precise, very exacting. So we had to figure out, well, what are the things that you need to do? How do we need to build this plan? And well, I'm sharing this through a leadership context. The important thing is that whether you're leading or whether you're in a formal leadership role or you're leading your household, in times of uncertainty, you have to have a plan because plans keep us focused. They help us, they point the direction that we need to go. They say, we have to do this step, this step, this step to get to some particular outcome or end. So for our son, we had to figure out, well, what was that plan? So he went to the Marine Corps recruiter and they told him a couple things. Okay, you weigh 260 pounds. You have to weigh about 195 pounds. So that was a significant part of the plan. You have to be able to do a certain number of push-ups, crunches, pull-ups, and a run. So we knew that all of those elements were the things that had to go into this plan. So he came back, he told us, gave us the information, and we sat down and we started to craft a plan. The next thing was we had to figure out, because he couldn't, unless he hit those markers that would prepare him to at least even enter the delayed entry program, unless he hit those markers, his dream of becoming a United States Marine just wasn't going to happen. And this is something important as we're running our businesses or maybe pivoting our businesses or downsizing our businesses or expanding business. It's incumbent upon leaders to be able to create a plan, to be able to enroll people. That means get people on board with that plan, get buy-in around that plan, and be able to help people see the end result that can have as a result of following through on that plan. So a plan was crafted. He had to have, first and foremost, to lose almost a little bit more than 60 pounds, we had to have a very strict eating regimen and diet. And so actually for us, the whole house, for a little while, the whole house joined in a green juice diet. We prepared, we would go and we go shopping. We'd buy all of the components we needed for green juice. I would create the juice. And initially we were doing it sort of in the moment each day, but I discovered quickly that it was very time consuming. So we started to make batches of green juice and freeze it. And so that was one of the first components. We had to set a meal plan, a diet plan. And then I wouldn't really call it a diet plan. It was just actually a meal plan and a healthy way of eating. So that was one of the first most important, because as any of you know who've ever tried to reduce weight or lose weight or shed weight, there's a lot that goes into being able to do that. So that was the first really important component that we need to do, was to set his eating plan up. The second we needed to figure out in our plan was exercise. Physical conditioning was critical. Again, he had not been physically conditioning himself. And so that had to become a plan. So he had three times a day workout. So he worked out in the morning at 6 a.m., mid-afternoon, and late evening. And frankly, it was extremely difficult, both for him, but also for our household, because not only did we have to, and he have to, take on this new plan, which if any of you are leading teams, you know, sometimes it's very difficult for people to take on a new plan, especially if it causes them to be uncomfortable. And he was very uncomfortable, having to, in the beginning, he couldn't run from one side of the block to the other side of the block. That's literally how much in shape he had to get. But he started working. And so the second thing that I discovered in this process was the power of champions. So my wife and I were really strongly his champions. We pushed him hard, to say the least, because he was resistant. And sometimes this can help in leadership, but the idea is whenever as leaders you're presenting a new way forward, whether you're presenting it, could be you're the leader or head of your household, or you're the leader and head of a team or a company, is that when you present something new that makes people uncomfortable, frequently you'll get pushback or resistance of some sort. And so you have to have champions who are the champions of the plan, but also direct champions to that person, cheering that person on or pulling that person along and encouraging them to move things forward. So the power of a plan was the first component. The second component was having champions. So we were his champions. And part of that championing is that we also had to help and support his accountability. So champions are not only encouraging and pulling you forward or showing you the way forward, but they can also be people who are supporting accountability. They show up. So for a while, we were all out. Our 10-year-old, my wife and I, and our oldest son, we were all out exercising in the morning. We were showing him that it is possible. We were showing and encouraging him. I would show him different exercises that he needed to do. I built his exercise plan so he had a clear understanding of what was expected. And then again, if you are ever having to do kind of a turnaround with a team or a turnaround with a company, people are definitely resistant and will only do just enough, right? There's just doing just enough is something that is very much human nature. Sometimes we don't want to go out on the limb because we're not sure. So the third thing that I saw and learned in this process was each person really needs to understand what will derail them, what will take them off the path of the plan, what will cause them to resist the champions, what will cause them to resist the accountability partners. And for our son, there was a lot of internal work. And I'm not saying this out of, sort of being gossipy. I'm saying this because what I saw in helping our son execute a plan, I saw a lot that I think, and that I certainly know that leaders encounter, not only in ourselves. Every leader encounters some of these exact same things. Sometimes we jump into something without a plan. Sometimes we are solo. I find this particularly of those of us who are entrepreneurs. We can be very focused. We're mavericks of sort. And so we forget to reach out for help. We forget to reach out and tap into people who are ahead of us in the work that we're doing. And sometimes we forget to realize that there are behaviors or habits that we have that can absolutely take us off task. So I'd love for you, if you will, write in the comments right now, if anything here is really like resonating for you, if you're getting some ahas, just jot them down in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe and make sure you share this, because this is the kind of stuff that will help anyone, no matter where they are in their professional career, if they're new to the professional environment, if they're thinking about becoming a leader, if they're an informal leader. We have lots of people in companies who are informal leaders. Share this video with them, because the more we understand and can learn from each other, the better we're going to thrive in and through this time of uncertainty. It's really, really critical. So make sure you subscribe below and share this. So 3 things: power of a plan to help you set the vision of where you want to go, knowing who your champions are. Sometimes you have to go out and find champions, right? And those champions can also be your accountability partners, your encouragers. Understanding really what derails you, what can derail you. Critical information to have, because the things that derail us will also be the things that will cause us to withdraw from talking to our champions. It can also be the things that will cause us to decide that our plan can't work. And so we can actually undermine our own plans. Even with our best intentions, we can undermine our own plans and even make excuses for why we're not successful at executing on our plan. And so with these derailers, I call them derailers, they can be things that just take us off sides, the things that get in the way of our success, the things that the excuses or the habits of ineffectiveness that we may have. Habits, for example, our son needed to move from waking up at 8:30 or 7:30 to waking up at sometimes 5:30, because we also required him to go walk the dog and then be ready for exercise at 6 o'clock. So that was a level of rigor that he was not accustomed to. And again, as you're in leadership roles and working with teams, if you take on a new team, we have a lot of movement professionally now. People are changing teams. Teams are falling apart and coming back together. And so you may have to develop new habits for teams that people will be resistant to. The other piece, I think, as leaders and as people who are implementing these plans, we really got to figure out what are the beliefs that limit us. I observed in our son that he didn't really believe that he could make the progress that he could be successful. He didn't really believe that he'd be able to run ultimately 6 miles in 24 minutes. He didn't believe that, I'm sorry, not in 24 minutes, that he'd be able to run 3 miles in 24 minutes, but that he would be able to come to the point where he could run 6 miles. Oh, I'm a track star. I only ran track when I was in high school. Okay, well, you'll be able to run a mile, and you'll be able to run it in 9 minutes or 8 minutes. Oh, I'll never be able to do that. So there were these limiting beliefs that he had about his own capacity. Again, I utilize the story that our family has gone through of supporting our young adult son, because these lessons are transferable to any place that we're working with people, any place that we're leading people, any place where teams are trying to form. Any team that's coming together right now in this time of uncertainty has habits and definitely has limiting beliefs. We have people who have been shocked by losing their job overnight. We have people who have been shocked because they're now working from home. They're trying to homeschool their children. They're trying to manage maybe people who are also, that you could have an entire family that is now working from home, and the internet is collapsing and trying to figure out how to do all that. The dog's barking in the background, the children are screaming or coming into your video. I mean, it's a myriad of things that are going on. But in that, especially as we're building teams or we're trying to rebuild ourselves, a lot of limiting beliefs. I don't think I can do that. Oh, I'm not sure. And people don't necessarily say those things out loud. They say them internally in this really important computer. Those messages are just sometimes looping. We don't sometimes even pay attention to the fact that they're in our minds, where we come up to a new opportunity and automatically our minds are saying, no, you can't do that. You failed the last time you did that. Or, oh, this hurts. So I know our son really, again, had to rely, well, he didn't really want to rely on champions. Let me just be real. But the fact that champions, supporters, encouragers were there, reinforcing, yes, you can, just keep going. Okay, today you had a 15-minute 1 mile run. Tomorrow, try to cut that down by 30 seconds. And part of the work around that was really to impact and interrupt those limiting beliefs that had entrenched themselves. And the work that it took for him to master himself was pretty significant. I will tell you that it was awe-inspiring to see the progress. Now, I want to be really blunt. This was not easy. It was not simple. It was not fun most of the time. I'll be really frank. It was not fun most of the time because we had pretty much a culture clash, which again, in organizations, we often have culture clashes with what does one leader want to have accomplished and what does a team think should be accomplished. And that can create a pretty tremendous culture. We really had to take a breath sometimes. recalibrate, walk out of the house or walk away from a conversation. Because again, not only are we dealing with having to move someone towards a plan, having to help him see how well he can do, instilling in him the belief that he could do it, but also he had been out on his own. And so, any of you who are parents know that is a recipe, especially for young adults. That is a recipe for conflict. And so there was conflict present. It was not. There were days that I was just like, "Oh dear Lord, what are we trying to do?" But again, a testament to him is that he also understood the plan, and he has two moms that are veterans, and he took direction. And I say this both for those who are looking at leaders. You may have a leader at your job that you're like, they can't get anything right. I mean, that's always our favorite thing. Or you may be a leader who's trying to move a team forward. And I think what I saw in our experience is perspective taking. You got to sometimes really take a step back, and just take a breath, literally, and get some perspective on what's happening. Getting up at 6 a.m., having to stretch and go out for a run, and then drinking some green juice that was sometimes tasty and sometimes not. But drinking green juice at least twice a day or throughout a day, and having a small meal at the end of the day is a recipe for agitation. Having to no longer have your Doritos and snacks and pizza and all of that is a recipe for a real serious crankiness. And so, those things are real. And on any team, any leader knows that, change takes time. Transformation takes time. And our son was on the path of transformation. And again, I think it's important for people to realize that transformation is understanding your strengths, it's understanding your growth areas, and it's having faith and confidence and hope and vision in the plan and in working that plan. And so from March, about the latter part of March until about mid-July, we worked this plan very, 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 very relentlessly, actually till probably at the end of June. And in that time, there was some really dramatic success. The green juice worked. Byron began to drop weight. The exercise was really beginning to work. He was able to, barely run a half a block, and then he could build momentum, and he could run a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and resting his body and recuperating and going a little bit more and a little bit more until finally he was able to run a full mile without stopping. And, that was exciting. It was exciting for him to see that he could do it, that he could, he could get that first thing that, just literally a month before he was not able to do. And so bit by bit, and that's how we build on a plan, bit by bit. That's how we get to be successful, bit by bit. That's how we can, shed weight. It's how we can strengthen our bodies. It's how we can strengthen our teams. It's how we can strengthen our companies, bit by bit. And it was very focused. We stayed very, very focused on the plan, on what needed to happen. And we had to be very mindful of those derailers. And so I'm super excited to share more about his progress and more about the outcome, because again, the persistence of champions, the persistence of someone who's constantly working on himself, even though he's not a kid, young person who I would say is necessarily focused on sort of a personal growth. That wasn't his. That's not the wording or language he would use. But it was bit by bit he began to see himself successful. And so I just want to, hopefully you can take one or two things away. There's a power in planning, and it's actually a quick plan. Oftentimes one piece of paper, if you're writing a plan out, do it on one sheet of paper, do just one or two things. We had literally two objectives, a physical conditioning and a weight reduction program, if you will. So when you're doing a plan, if you're trying to make huge and substantial change in an organization, huge and substantial change in your own leadership or your own growth, it's important to just sketch something out on one piece of paper, take one thing, and then to put one thing on there, one really big goal, and write a couple of sub goals on how you want to execute on that. Always, always, always enroll some champions. Find some people who've done it. Find some people who are excited to support you. Find some people who will not allow you to let your limiting beliefs become the way that you do things, because those are complete derailers. Our limiting beliefs are just absolute derailers. So hopefully you've enjoyed learning a little bit about some of the way that we moved our son forward, and even figuring out some of those ways you can take those lessons and apply them to your own work, to your leading of teams. My name is Jenny DuFresne. I'm the founder of Balance and Flow. This is exciting for me because leadership is the transformer. Whether you're in a formal leadership role or an informal leadership role, that means if you have a title or you don't have a formal title, all of us are leading in some way, and all of us are transforming and looking to grow in some way. And all of us want to thrive in this time of uncertainty. So I hope you found this beneficial. I have a couple more things that I'm going to share in episode 11 around success and the outcome of a plan, champions, mastering your derailers, and tackling your own limiting beliefs. I'll share more about what the outcome was for our son. So make sure you stay tuned. Please subscribe below so you know when that next episode drops. And I look forward to seeing you and seeing your comments below. Something that really was exciting about this, or that you learned about this, please set it share it in the comments below. Thanks a bunch for joining, and I look forward to talking to you and sharing with you some more soon. Take care.